We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. I just have to give full transparency. As I've said before on the podcast, that my wife and I are on the road, so I'm trying to get ahead with the podcasts because it's going to be difficult if I'm in a hotel or driving or whatever. I won't be able to do the podcast. So I want to make sure people have a podcast. The only problem with that is if things change in news, which they almost certainly will, it might appear as though that we're out of date with the podcast. So we'll talk about some general things and some things we um, know that are going on. And if there are any changes, I'll make some additions. But for now, we are very fortunate to have Eric with us today. Eric is from Iowa, and he's a more detail-oriented guy. When I need to figure something out, I go to him because if I need more information about something I've heard about, he usually has it. So, Eric, welcome to the podcast. Always a great pleasure to have you here.
Well, thanks for having me. I love doing the podcast. I love giving my perspective. Like you said, I like to be a little more detail oriented. I like to go back to, especially with some of the challenging stories of what they could do. And I look at, okay, where can they be? What could they actually accomplish? And assuming things work the way they should, I try to give some people some clarity about what potentially could actually happen. Because it's easy to get wrapped up and overwhelmed and start freaking out about worst case scenarios when even some of those things there just isn't mechanisms for it to happen.
Well, yeah, exactly. And if you're watching the media, they always give you the worst possible news, the worst possible scenario, because they want you afraid. They want you to keep tuning in, and that's what hooks people. So that's why they do it. The big news story, and it's tough in the position you and I are in tonight to talk about this because it doesn't air till Saturday, and everything may have changed. But as we sit here on Wednesday night, um, the House is flailing around trying to figure this out. And as we were talking about before, um, they don't have enough votes. They don't have enough people to get the votes.
Right.
Um, it sounds like Mike Johnson and the Republicans are trying to rush this through to hit Donald Trump's deadline, which would have been yesterday, July 4th, uh, to get this done. And when you do that, there's a lot of fuck ups, and it sounds like they've had some.
Yeah, from what I understand right now, and I don't know if this has changed since I looked earlier today, which would have been Wednesday. um they are 8 members short of their full caucus,
Right.
and they only had a 3 vote margin to begin with. Maybe it was 4, something like that. And Democrats were 1 vote short. If you do the math, they don't have the number of people. Even if all Republicans vote for it as it stands, if all Democrats vote against it, it will fail right now. Now that could change in the next couple of days, by the time this airs, like you said. But they're struggling. They're trying to meet this artificial deadline, in part because Donald Trump wants a win. He wants to get this under his belt, that he passed it. It's going to be so great. And I'm sure the pressure is going to come even more after that disastrous jobs report for June. It's not looking good. He wants some kind of a victory. Even this, while he could tout it as a victory, is going to ultimately be a failure because that's all he does.
Well, that's exactly right. And this is what Donald Trump does. He fails. He rushes something. He thinks it's going to make him look good, like bombing Iran or any of the other things he's done. And he always fucks it up. That's what I've always said is just don't worry about it. Donald Trump will fuck it up at some point. Um, the thing, maybe the way we should talk about this bill thing, because like I say, they're going to be working on it through the night, Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Um, maybe by Saturday we have some resolution to this whole thing. But what I want to do is, I don't know that everybody understands just how dire everything is if they pass this bill. And there are plenty of Republicans saying that, oh, I'd never sign this bill. I would never do this to my constituents. Uh, but as Claire McCaskill said on MSNBC, yeah, but we've heard that before, and at the last minute they cave. Um, Lisa Murkowski, fucking caved, and she is a piece of shit. I have to wonder that at some point, because they've got to pay homage to their Lord and Savior Donald Trump, that they're going to find a way to get this passed. Um, if it passes, from your perspective, you live in Iowa. It's a more rural area than where I'm in the suburbs of Minneapolis, St. Paul. If they pass this, and let's just say if they pass it, they have to pass it the way the Senate set it out. If they make any changes, it goes back to the Senate. So it has to pass the way it is. And what people don't understand is there was a lot of money taken out of Medicaid in the House bill. It goes to the Senate. Now there's more money taken out of Medicaid. So they made it fucking worse. Say this happens and they find a way to get this passed. How dire is it going to be for people like in your area?
Way I understand it, pretty bad. A lot of the rural hospitals, they require on Medicaid funding. A lot of red states, they have a chunk of their population is on Medicaid. I know with Lisa Murkowski in Alaska, one of the things that came up when she was trying to carve out Alaska from the Medicaid cuts, which didn't happen because Senate parliamentarians said, can't do that. That doesn't fly. You have to get past the filibuster if you want to do that. 30% of Alaskans are on Medicaid.
Right.
I don't know what the number is here for Iowa. A lot of these rural hospitals have a lot of people that qualify and they get Medicaid dollars. And I did a TikTok on this over the last weekend, talking about Medicaid. And somebody else on TikTok put me on this idea, and it made sense. A lot of places and a lot of people are on Medicaid and don't even know it. For
Yeah.
example, there is a low income program where it only counts for, I believe, children here in Iowa. At least that's the way I remember it. I haven't looked into it for a long time. Called Hawkeye. And it's like for those that don't quite qualify for full Medicaid, but you still can qualify. It usually has some
Yeah.
kind of a copay, usually like $10 a month, something like that. Nothing that'll break the bank. And then you buy into full Medicaid and you're on for the 100% insurance that Medicaid offers.
Right.
Well, a lot of people, they're like, well, I don't have Medicaid, I have Hawkeye. It's the same thing. And I saw another creator talking about it and listed a bunch of different states where it's called something else, but it's Medicaid. It's funded through Medicaid dollars. And like here, the local hospital, I guarantee you, if they don't get Medicaid funding and their patients don't have it, they're either going to be struggling more than they already are, or they may have to just shut doors. It's entirely possible that some of the smaller rural places potentially close up if they can't get paid out because they can't charge the remaining people enough to make up the difference.
Well, yeah, I mean, the domino effect is pretty amazing. They will definitely be closing down hospitals because hospitals depend on money that they gain from Medicaid. Then doctors will be fired and nurses will be fired and the rest of the staff will be fired. And that is in a small rural area. So it'll affect the economy of the small rural area, the stores and the restaurants. I mean, what's going to happen is absolutely devastating. And you're right, people don't understand what they're on. We knew somebody um, that was a Trump fan and certainly didn't like Obamacare. So they were on something called MNsure here in this town, and they called it the ACA, which is the official title. And they insisted, while they got a lot of help from MNsure and the ACA, that they weren't on Obamacare. Sorry to tell you, you were on Obamacare. This is the problem. It's confusing to so many people, and they don't realize where the money is coming from. And in the process, they're going to fuck themselves.
Well, yeah, and like you said, they were on this MNsure and the ACA, but Republicans have demonized Obamacare
Right.
ever since it came out. It has been they have demonized it. But now that people like the Affordable Care Act and some of the things it's done, they cheer the Affordable Care Act while still demonizing Obamacare. Even some of the politicians,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
won't go as far as to say we want to repeal the Affordable Care Act, but they'll say we want to repeal Obamacare. Republicans are always good at spinning the words of things and making you believe something is something it's not. It is it's amazing how good they do this, but they've done it for decades about making people believe things simultaneously about the same thing just by changing the wording. Somebody really should study it because that's kind of fascinating.
It is fascinating. One of the things that I don't get, I don't understand if they don't have foresight, they don't have courage, whatever it is. All of these people on the Republican side know exactly what's going to happen if they pass this bill. Some of them even complained about it before they were switched over to the other side. They made them flip different sides of the fence. They were against it, and now they're for it. People like Josh Hawley and some others. They were highly against it, and Josh Hawley should be against it because Medicaid in Missouri is pretty significant. Like you said, 30-40% of the people. That's a lot of people that aren't going to vote for you next time. But that's the thing is they don't see what's going to happen to them. Because not only is this going to be pushed down people's throat after it passes, I'm convinced some Democrats can't wait till it passes because it will be that message that they can shove down their throats for the next hour, a year and a half. Um, but I'm thinking we need to rename the Republican Party because if this, put it this way, if this bill doesn't pass and Donald Trump is embarrassed, down the road something will pass, something will happen. Uh, but if they pass this bill, I think we ought to rename the Republicans the Genocide Party because that's
Yeah.
exactly what's going to happen. A lot of people are going to die. I see the videos of people out there, older people and people that are infirmed, and they're saying, I don't know what I would do without Medicaid. It's a good question. What will you do? And what are the options? If someone's seriously sick, they're going to fucking die. But apparently Donald Trump doesn't mind about that because he had 1 million people die during COVID.
No, he doesn't care. But remember, Joni Ernst, the junior senator here from Iowa, was talking to a group of constituents who said, "What are we going to do without Medicaid?" And she goes, "Well, we're all going to die." You had Mitch McConnell, when he was asked about it, he goes, "Well, they'll just get over it.
Yeah. Yeah,
They
we're all
don't
going to
care if
die.
people die."
We're all going to die. I was just hoping we all aren't going to die next week. Maybe
Yeah.
have a little quality of life, maybe have some time left with our friends and families. It's it's amazing to me. If I was a Republican um, congressman, this wouldn't be a hard choice for me. Yeah, Donald Trump might come after me, but Donald Trump's getting weaker and weaker every day. How about just do the right thing and represent the people who elected you? It seems like a simple choice, but they have the toughest time with it.
Yeah, they do. In part because for whatever reason, they're still afraid of Donald Trump. They want to ride his coattails. So a few of them have seen the light and realized he's not going to bring them any more political capital and are starting to do the right thing. But then you have others who are looking at it going, well, he's still got some political capital. We can ride him through the midterms. Maybe I can get reelected. I'll break with him after the midterms as we start gearing up to 28. You know, I think they're all staring at it going, we know his time is short, but they're trying to get every ounce from him. And if they pass this bill, it is going to be about as bad as how um, President Hoover handled the Great Depression when it comes to the effect afterward and how it hands Democrats power for an extended period. I think this could be the catalyst that puts Democrats in control for 10, 20 years.
Well, let me ask you this, and we've talked about this before. As painful and as devastating as this bill is, do we need this to pass just to finally burn down the Republican Party? because every time they try to divert, distract, delay, do all these different things, they fuck up and they distract, and less and less people believe them, but there's still a base that does. Do they have to burn this mother down before people wake the fuck up?
I hope not. I really hope not. I hope
I
we
do
can get there
too.
without burning it all down. The problem is, like I said, a lot of people don't realize what they're even on when it comes to like Medicare, Medicaid, because they rename things so many different things in the different states that they're convinced that because their state doesn't use just straight Medicaid, that they're safe or that it's something different than what their state has or whatever. I hope we don't have to burn it all down in order to prove a point. I think we're getting somewhere just with doing what we're doing with the messaging we have going.
Yeah.
You know, look at the No Kings protest that was planned, back in June on his birthday. I've heard 11 to 13 million people showed up nationwide. Not a lot, but that's significant compared to either side's voting block. And the next one is only going to be bigger. The more people hear about what actually is going on, we keep getting the messaging out there, and not just even people on our side. I'm hearing it from Republican leading content creators saying, hey, wait a minute, some of this might not be that good. Even some of the politicians are saying, this is bad for our state, my state, whatever. The more that message gets out there, just the better chance of waking people up there is.
Yeah. Well, one of the other protests, as you're listening to this, already happened yesterday. There was another No Kings protest on July 4th. And I'm suspecting that that ended up bigger than the first one, but we'll see. We'll see. One of the things I think about this bill, depending on how it goes, if they pass it, I think that is a breaking point for two reasons. Because it's going to be very dire results from this. People are going to struggle, people are going to die, and it's going to change the tone in a lot of people who have been, smirking and cocky about Donald Trump. They aren't going to feel that way anymore. Um, but the Republicans aren't known for governing. What comes after this? What's their big deal that they're going to get behind after this bill? I don't think they have anything. And that could be a problem for them too. They can't carry any narrative if they're not doing anything. I mean, they're going to try to do some things, but they've never really accomplished much important at all, other than the tax break for the rich back in 2017.
Yeah, I think in part, we talked a little bit about Lisa Murkowski voting for this thing. Votes to pass it and then says, well, I hope the House fixes it. Got me thinking about that. I'm hoping, I'm thinking that they're hoping that it doesn't pass at all, that they can keep bouncing this thing around for a while because it looks like they're doing something. Once this
Yeah.
passes, like you said, they don't really have any more priority. Funding would have been passed for all of their priorities. The courts are blocking a lot of what Donald Trump wants to do. They know they don't have the votes to get past the filibuster for really anything else. There's not much else they can do. About the only other thing they would try to accomplish is going back to investigate Joe Biden again, this time for whether he was senile or not. When you have Donald Trump clearly being senile in the Oval Office on a daily basis, and they want to ignore that. So they don't have anything beyond this policy. And I don't know what they'll do.
One of the things you just said, I've heard a lot of people say, and it's, well, when we get to the midterms, that may be a breaking point or a turning point in all this stuff. I personally think it's going to come before that. These Republicans, if they think we'll wait and win in 2026 and then we'll decide what we're going to do with Donald Trump, a lot of those motherfuckers are not going to be back in their positions. They better get on their bicycle now and do something, because when the election comes up, it could be an absolute wipeout if people are dying and people are up in arms and 20 million people are in the streets protesting. That doesn't paint a great picture for the Republicans. So if they're waiting for the midterms, just trying to keep Donald Trump happy to the midterms, they're making a horrible mistake.
Yeah, but I think, and I've talked about it before, that I think that they're all privately weighing when they think that breaking point is. They don't feel enough pressure yet. And by the time they think the pressure is high enough, they're going to be past the point of no return.
Well,
They
absolutely, yeah.
they're afraid of losing that 30% base of the conservative Republican Party, the mega base. That if Donald Trump turns against them, they will not vote for that person. They may not vote Democrat, but for that race, whether it's Murkowski in Alaska, Grassley here in Iowa, or whoever, they'll just leave that spot blank if Donald Trump says vote against them or don't vote for him anyway. They may not vote for the Democrat, but they won't vote for the Republican. And Republicans can't lose that many votes. They can't lose 30% of their base in a lot of these states and still win.
No,
So
absolutely.
they're trying to walk that tightrope because of that fear. But yeah, they're not looking at the other 70% of their voting base going, oh shit, what if we lose them? Because they think the rest of them are going to be more comfortable voting for a Republican no matter what. They're not seeing it yet. They don't realize that they have fucked themselves completely and they've backed themselves into a corner. There's no way out here. They can't win.
No, they can't win in this situation. We even heard Donald Trump's, if anybody goes against him, like Tom Tillis, I'm going to primary you. But then Elon Musk says, if you do vote for it, I'm going to primary you. Now, Elon Musk is just a guy, but he's also the richest guy in the world, and he could mount some shit for against Republicans. Now, here's the thing. Um, I don't want to see Elon Musk, and I don't want anybody from the Democratic Party to take from Elon Musk. He is a flat out criminal. He's done some irreparable damage, and he needs to go to jail. So the Democrats shouldn't hop on that fucking train because a lot of Democrats won't like that. But if he wants to primary these guys with other Republicans or independents or whatever, I don't give a fuck. I hope he does.
Yeah, I agree. If he wants to throw money out trying to primary some of these Republicans out, uh, one of the things I've talked a lot about when it comes to voting is name recognition.
Right.
And you take somebody out of the race, I will use him here because he's been in the Senate longer than I've been alive. Chuck Grassley. You take
Right.
Grassley's name off the ballot and you put somebody else in there, there's a better chance that the Democrat could win just because there's a lot of people in this state that are in the same boat I am who have never known Iowa to not have Grassley as their senator. They go into the voting booth and go, yeah, okay, things kind of suck, but they're really not that bad. I'll vote for Grassley again. He must know what he's doing. Or he's good for Iowa because he's been there so long. He's got connections. He can get things done for the state. They're willing to vote for him. You take him out and say you're against whoever. Now suddenly they got to look at the candidates a little closer and go, wait a minute, maybe the other guy's policies aren't so good. You lose that. If Musk wants to primary these Republicans, I'm all for it. If he wants to use PAC money on his own, where the Democratic candidate can come out and say, if he wants to throw his money into PACs, fine. I do not accept his endorsement. Okay. But Democrats should not be openly taking endorsements from Musk. They shouldn't be taking his money. And
No.
if any Democrat does, they deserve to get voted out.
Well, you have to understand what Musk is doing here. He's trying to save his own life. He's trying to redeem himself with the people of this country who don't buy his cars anymore. In fact, after this little thing with Donald Trump and him, his Tesla stock dropped even more. He's in a frantic state here. He's got to save his companies because that's his whole identity. And if he can try to shift the opinion of him being a nice guy, he's going to try to do it. And some people will be sucked in by that. But again, what he's done already, you can't forget about that. And a lot of it is irreparable. So he needs to be accountable for that. And even if he tries to be a nice guy right now, fuck him. I would be just as happy keeping him out of politics altogether. But if he's going to be in there, if he's going to fuck up the Republicans, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely an enemy of my enemy is my friend situation with Elon
Yeah.
Musk. You know, you don't you keep him at arm's length at best, let him fuck the Republicans over. But who knows where he may even be in 4 years? Donnie Trump is already talking about sicking Doge on Musk and going after all of his subsidies and government contracts and all of it. And Elon Musk may be a victim of his own creation because something tells me the Department of Government Efficiency was not a Donald Trump idea.
No.
You know, and doing what they did probably wasn't, a Donald Trump idea. I bet it was. I bet Musk had a big hand in it, and there'd be something fitting if Musk gets taken out by his own creation.
The thing about it is when they had their first argument and then it settled down, you and I think, agreed that, yeah, this isn't over with. These are two
Mm-hmm.
narcissists that have to have the last word and have to be the winner. And nobody clearly won this one. So somebody else is going to stick their nose in it. Then you throw in the fact that Elon Musk has to try to find a way to redeem himself. Of course, he's going to bitch about this thing. And of course, they go back sniping back and forth. Um, if it goes too far, it's very dangerous for both of them because I think it's like Russia and America with nuclear weapons. They could get into a situation where mutual destruction based on, whatever they
Mm-hmm.
know about each other. And I know there are people around them in the last argument were getting nervous about it and said, fuck, you got to pull back. There'll come a point where they won't be able to hold them back. They'll be too mad, too butthurt, and they just start spewing shit. And that's what I'm looking forward to when they just go out of control and they start going back and forth rapid fire. That is going to be fucking entertaining and devastating to both of them.
Oh yeah, I think when it gets to that point, if there is any election stuff that comes out, I think uh, whether it's from one way or the other, whether it's Musk saying, "Well, I hope I did this or I did that. I'm the only reason you won," and he actually brings receipts, or it's going to come from Donald Trump and he's going to be dumb enough to open his mouth and say, "Well, yeah, well, you did this for me, but that was clearly illegal, so I'm going to have my DOJ indict you." I think either of those two fallouts are possible, and that again will probably be the point where it's too late for the rest of the Republicans, but they may have to move in and oust Donnie Boy too, just to save some face on their own part. So they don't end up with egg all over their faces going, well, you guys clearly knew about all of this that was going on between Musk and Trump. If there was any nefarious thing with the election, the longer this feud between those two comes out or it happens, it will come out and it's going to be explosive when it does.
I will say this when it comes to any mishandlings of the election, I don't think that revelation is going to come out of Elon Musk because he's smart enough to know that he would be implicated in it. He's smart enough to know that. I think what's more likely to come out of Elon Musk is more about the Jeffrey Epstein or some other shady, sketchy shit. And he's going to keep pushing them. And then what will happen, if there's anything that comes out about the election, Donald Trump won't be able to control himself. And he'll say, yeah, well, Elon did this during the election. Whoops, did I say that out loud? It's more likely that he would misspeak like that or overshoot what he should say. And Elon is and he would think that, well, Elon just did it for him because he loves me. I didn't know anything about it. That's what he would do. But I think if there's going to be something coming out about the election or some mishandling that Elon did, it's going to come from Donald. I don't think Elon, unless he cuts a deal for immunity and exposes everything, but that doesn't matter either. Who's going to fucking go after him? The DOJ? No. Nothing's going to happen until that DOJ is gone. So it's just a matter of getting as much information out and embarrassing both of them. Mostly Donald Trump. I don't really care about Elon anymore, but I think Donald Trump would be the one that would make the misstep and talk about the election.
Yeah, you're probably right. It's either going to be something where, uh, kind of like what happened with Israel and Iran, where the reporter asked the question just phrased just the right way, and he comes out with, "Well, they don't know what the fuck they're," or you ask
Yeah.
just the right question, and he's going to just, it'll be phrased in such a way that he just spews something, and he won't even realize what he said until somebody else asks him about it, a day later, or it'll be something that comes out, and he'll be sitting awake at 2 in the morning stewing over it, and he'll release like an all caps tirade on Truth Social and let
Yeah.
it all go.
It's interesting. Now, one of the stories that came out a day or two ago was about this brilliant idea of having the Alligator Alcatraz, the concentration camp for all intents and purposes in the Everglades. And the cool part of it is even if the people get out, they'd have to go through um, um, snake or alligator infested waters and they'd get eaten. They and he was so proud of it. And he went down there to speak and be buddies with Ron DeSantis again, which is ironic. I saw a creator come on and say, it's ironic that they were able to get this concentration camp put up and ready to go in short order. If you can do that and spend, a few $100 million to do that, why couldn't you do that with healthcare or some of the other things? To him, it's more important to build jails that aren't air conditioned, that people will die in most certainly, because it is, for all intents and purposes, a concentration camp.
Yeah, exactly. And uh, I heard he used FEMA money to do it,
Yep, that's
which
exactly
means,
right.
uh, all of these states that are waiting for him to accept federal disaster declarations and stuff, he wants to get rid of FEMA anyway. So he's moving the budget around. And I don't know how he's able to move FEMA money in to do this. You would think a well placed lawsuit would be able to shut this whole thing down because of funding. But apparently, like you said, they built this thing in a week.
Yeah.
Um, Congress is going to hopefully step in, you would think. The sane Republicans have got to see how bad this thing looks. And maybe they will, as they're still negotiating this budget bill, at least as we're talking about this right now. Maybe they will throw something in there about it. I don't know. But this whole thing looks bad, and we need to keep talking about it, about him doing this, because we have to keep, much like everything else they're doing, we got to keep the narrative out there, because otherwise people will forget.
Oh yeah, you got to keep pounding on him. But the ironic thing about this, he builds this Alligator Alcatraz, uses FEMA money, and it's in the Everglades in Florida. So now, when hurricane season hits and a hurricane hits Florida and wipes out the Alligator Alcatraz, they have no FEMA money to put the fucker back up. Then what do?
Yeah, then he'll probably try to divert money from something else. I
Yeah, no
mean,
doubt.
he re- he reminds me, I think I've used this analogy before, of somebody I know, and who would, it started out innocently enough, got a $500 credit card.
Right,
Before long, credit card was maxed, but this
right.
company offered $1,000 credit card. So with 0% interest, transfer the balance. Okay, transfer the balance over the new card. Now he's got two cards with $500 on them. Runs them both up. Third card comes in with $5,000 balance, transfers all the balances over, and is just constantly getting new cards and moving the money onto it, but never actually paying anything. It looks like he's paying something on paper, and that's what Donald Trump seems to be doing with all of this. It's a shell game. He's moving the money around and just, and I know he's not smart enough to be the one doing this. Somebody else is helping him move the money because he doesn't know what's going on half the time. Hell, read an article right before we came on here. At least I was starting to. That it says now he doesn't even attend like full briefings. He
Yeah.
gets bored. He walks out partway through to answer a personal phone call, and these people waiting to finish the meeting for half an hour to up to multiple hours, as he's off doing whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. the thing about it is that the money situation is a problem for Donald Trump. He thinks he can spend willy nilly. It is July 5th as people are listening to this podcast right now. And we heard that Department of Homeland Security ran out of money on June 30th. So here we are 5 days away or past when they ran out of money. How are they going to continue doing deportations? How are they going to fund ICE if they're completely out of money for the year? I mean, they're supposed to be able to go to September and it's July, first part of July. They're out of fucking money because they've been spending money like drunken fucking sailors. But now they're supposed to be out of money. They got to get the money from someplace to keep deporting people.
Yeah, that's why he's trying to bring in the National Guard. He's trying to loop in the FBI. He's trying to loop in the ATF or whatever, trying to use some of their budgets to get this priority done. And it really, he's stretching to make it happen. And then they're going to be out of budget. And the lower people that are helping him do this are going to be the ones left holding the bag. Director of Homeland Security, what is it? Is that Christy Nome? Yeah, she could be the one left holding the bag, potentially facing criminal charges. Now, nothing will happen under Donald Trump's DOJ, but there are criminal charges for overspending the federal budget.
Yeah.
And a lot of these underlings could potentially be facing criminal issues. And if Democrats take back the House and the Senate in the midterms, there's going to be all kinds of investigations specifically on the budget. Even some Republicans are drawing them to task as things are going, because they're trying to be fiscally responsible. And this administration is anything but.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've talked about the prospect of litigation after what's her name and Donald Trump are out of the DOJ when there's real people dealing with real law. Over and above the financial aspects of it, there's obviously been a gross amount of grifting and stealing and borrowing from one to pay the other. But it's also the humanitarian shit. I mean, it gets really hard to watch, not only with the budget and taking people off their health care and having people die there through these deportations. We're seeing how people are being treated. There's videos, there's stories of women and children and innocent people, elderly people in general, that are just being treated horribly. I'm curious. I wanted to ask you about this story because I've heard the story. I don't know that it's altogether true. Well, I know part of it's true, but people are making a lot of suppositions about it. This story about shackled people, dead people, washing up on the shore of Spain and some other places. And people are supposing that these could be immigrants that were loaded on one of those cargo planes by Donald Trump. Now, the stories they're saying these cargo planes, if you look at their manifest and details, the paperwork with it, they're going out to the ocean and then coming right back. And that would support somebody's thought that they're taking them out in planes and dumping them off. Is Donald Trump and Stephen Miller that stupid and that cruel? A normal situation, that's kind of a lot. That's kind of crazy. But you have to give it a second thought. I don't know that it's true. I've been looking for it. In fact, I went to AI and I said, is it true that shackled bodies have shown up on the shore of Spain? And they have. We don't know where they came from. Somebody else suggested it might be slaves from Africa or something like that. But it's a sad state of affairs when we hear something this crazy and we have to go, well, could be.
Yeah, I know. And that's the downside of this administration is they have proven that nothing is outside the realm of possibility with them. The crazier it sounds, the more you got to go, well, it could, and you got to think twice. But if I were to give a word of warning to anybody doing the underling part of that, just remember what we learned in Nuremberg. I was just following orders does not equal an offense. You
Yeah.
know you're doing something wrong, which means when the shit hits the fan, and I know Will likes to talk about tribunals after the fact, and I don't know if there will be, but when there's a competent DOJ, there probably will be criminal charges for a bunch of people out of this administration. It is probably, unless Donald Trump does something like pardoning everybody on his way out the door, which doesn't sound like a Donald Trump thing, because that would mean caring for other people and what, you know, effects they have on, what effects things have on their lives. Um, there are going to be lots of criminal cases coming out, but we also need to have somebody who's willing to put in the hard work, and somebody not like Merrick Garland.
Right, exactly. Well, let me ask you this. Say if that plane thing even has a shred of truth, or people like this guy who came from Canada, came to the United States, was put in detention and dies. When do we get to the point where it's an international law thing, where it doesn't matter about the DOJ because The Hague and Jack Smith and the international law say this is inhumane behavior and we're going to take you to task. Now, I'm not saying they're going to get Donald Trump to go to The Hague, any more than Vladimir Putin or Bibi Netanyahu are going to The Hague, but it would be interesting to see if there were charges pressed and litigation on an international level for Donald Trump and the people around him.
Well, what would probably happen, the way I understand it, and I don't know a lot about the International Criminal Court, I'll be honest,
No, I don't
but
either.
I know when the charges get brought, and I don't know the entire process to do that. It would become a thing where Donald Trump wouldn't be allowed. Basically, wouldn't be allowed to set foot out of the United States, because depending on where he ends up, they could be looking for him, and he
Yeah.
could get arrested when he's outside the protection of the U.S. borders. Um, is it possible? Yeah. When do we get to that point? I have no idea. I don't even know what that process even looks like, or where they would begin with uh, doing charges like that.
And you said something that Donald Trump could get to the end of his term and pardon all these people. That's really not his game. There's no value in it for him. But if I'm one of those people hoping against hope that Donald Trump's going to pardon me, I don't think he's going to get a chance to pardon anybody because I don't think he's leaving office in the traditional sense. He's not going to sit there till 2028 and get kicked out after somebody else gets elected. Something's going to happen between now and then, whether it be an impeachment or whether it be him choking on a Big Mac and keeling over. I don't know. But when it comes that Donald Trump is going to be gone, I think it's going to happen very quickly, and Donald Trump will only be worried about Donald Trump and not anybody else getting fucking pardoned. So if you're waiting for a pardon from Donald Trump this time around, you're going to be fucking disappointed.
Oh yeah, when it happens, it's going to happen quick. I think I mentioned this the last time we were on the podcast together. Maybe not. There could be a chance after the November election in 26, when you got a bunch of Republicans who know they got voted out, they got beat, and they have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
They could end up siding with the Democrats. And in that 2 month span, that's enough time to draft some articles of impeachment and hold a trial. They could very easily move him out then, especially if they're pissed about losing their seats because they think they lost because they're connected to Donald Trump. It's not like he hasn't done enough that they could, conceivably do that. We don't know, but when it happens, I think he's going to get, unless it happens after Democrats take control after the 26 midterms, because I firmly believe that's what's going to happen. If it happens at any point between now and the 26 midterms, he's going to be blindsided
Yeah.
that it happened at all. He's going to be in scramble mode. He's going to be trying to protect, and he's going to fuck up because he's not going to know what to do.
Well, he's going to flail and he's going to say stuff. He's going to burn bridges. And it's just going to make it worse. But you make a good point. If we get to the midterms and they've bent over backwards for Donald Trump in order to ensure that they get elected in the midterms, and it's a wipeout. in the House and possibly the Senate, there are going to be a lot of pissed off people. And since they're going to be leaving their positions, they do have nothing to lose. So, do they go after their own little revenge by impeaching Donald Trump? If I'm a Republican and I'm in that position where I've lost my job and the Republic or the Democrats got a good majority in the House and the Senate, I would definitely do it then. It would be a way of saving some, I don't know about face, but just kind of going out the door with something positive on your side because you just did this horrible job working for Donald Trump and then you lose. Because when the Democrats take over, that's one of the first things they're going to do. They're going to fucking impeach him anyway. So we don't have to wait for the Republicans to do it. The Democrats will do it when they get the chance without question. If they impeached him twice the first time, that may be the first order of business when they get in, if they're in a position to do that. But if I'm a Republican, why not do that? Why the fuck not do that?
Yeah, it makes sense. And you could even have, because you need to get to 67 senators to remove the president. And I don't know how the math looks for the election map in 26. I don't know if Democrats could pick up that many seats that they could have a full majority to do that. They would probably need Republican help. But you could have some of the Republican senators that are up for reelection in 28 even going, well, if I do it now, I've got 2 years to dust myself off from impeaching him, try to rebuild and rebrand myself with the Republican base, and hope they've forgotten what I've done. He's going to get blindsided when it happens. There are so many factors that I don't think he's thinking about. He's worried about surviving until tomorrow and getting a win and making himself look good and stroking his ego. He doesn't know how fucked he really is.
But yeah, the thing about it is Donald Trump, I see Donald Trump right now in his political position, much like the young pro athlete who gets $1 billion and he's on a spending spree, gets 5 women pregnant, buying big houses, 100 cars. Then he gets to be 33, 34 years old, not quite as productive. And all of a sudden he's out of business. He made 100, $200 million in his lifetime, and now he's broke. He thinks it will always keep coming. And this is what Donald Trump thinks. Because he's a narcissist, he thinks he'll always be popular and people will always send him money and they will always support him. But once it becomes not valuable to support him, they will go away in droves. And I will tell you what, if something doesn't happen between now and the midterms will be the breaking point. I think something's going to happen before then, but the midterms will be the breaking point. If Donald Trump loses you the midterms, and let's be honest, that's who is going to lose it for him because they all stood with him. There is no reason to follow this clown anymore. They are going to throw him to the wolves. Even the people that do get reelected, they're going to go, fuck, we lost the majority. And whose fault was it? It was Donald Trump's. When that happens, there's going to be an avalanche of people discounting and disrespecting and no longer following Donald Trump. He doesn't see that coming, but it always comes to people like him. And he's just on the verge of that happening.
Yeah, he is. They're going to turn on him, and hell, it might not even take to the midterms.
That's
I
what I'm
mentioned it
thinking.
slightly earlier. We had that June jobs report where we lost 33,000 jobs in the month of June. We get too many more of those going into January or so. There could be a lot of Republicans willing to break from him because primary season, we're now in the middle of it. And they're worried about winning their primary for their district to rerun again or for their state race or what have you. If the economy's looking like shit, like it very much could, why wouldn't they want to end up cutting ties and trying to push themselves away and maybe try to bring in JD Vance, you know, to at least mitigate the
Settle it
damage
down.
so it at least appears like they tried to do something. Whether
Yeah.
or not it actually does do anything to make it better, we'd have to wait and see. But they're going to want the appearance that they tried to do something.
Well, I tell you what human nature is. If you've got a bully that's holding a club over your head and you're going, yes, 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 I'll do that. I'll do whatever you say. You got the club over my head. That's how Donald Trump does business. The moment that guy is weak, no longer has the club, these people attack. They are tired of being beaten down and downtrodden by this guy, and they can't wait to kick this guy's ass. That's what I mean. It's not even so much that they're going to step away. Some of these people may go after him in whatever way they can. And Donald Trump isn't seeing that. He thinks I mean, I don't think they tell him everything or anything, because when somebody talked to him about the polling, he said, "I have the best polling in the history of when I've been in politics." Well, that's just not true. It's not even close to true. You have the worst. Is it that he doesn't know, or that he just thinks he can perpetuate a lie till somebody believes it? I just don't think he knows. I mean, he's not sharp enough to answer questions, let alone retain any of this information.
Well, yeah, he doesn't listen to briefings. They don't tell him shit about shit. He wants to, hear that, oh, he's the best, he's the greatest. He came out, pointed at some poll, I don't made up poll or some bullshit. I think he even just made the number up, said he had like a 95% approval rating, which you don't get those kind of numbers. No president gets those kind of numbers, at least not in a free and fair country. That's what you
No.
hear about like places like North Korea, where, oh, you say you like the supreme leader or else type deal.
Right.
And that's what he
Right.
wants. He's not being fed all of the information about anything. I would be surprised if he even knows that the economy lost jobs. And he'll probably say, well, that was a fake report spun up by the fake news media. The real numbers are much, much better. Even though it was his Department of Labor that put the numbers together. His people
Yeah.
came up with the numbers. He doesn't even probably have a clue what's going on. They're worried about Joe Biden being inept. This guy proves it on a day-to-day basis, and he can't even be bothered to attend the meetings.
Well, and I think what you're talking about with that jobs thing, it wasn't the full jobs report, but it was the jobs report from ADP regarding private industry. They were expecting that to grow by 100,000 jobs. That's what they expected. And I saw a video on Fox News where they were reporting it, and the news came in as they were live on the air. And they're saying, well, we're expecting $100,000. And some Republican rep was there going, yeah, smiling and shit. And then Maria Bartiromo gets it and says, oh, they lost jobs. And and both of them were just completely flummoxed. They didn't know what to say. They're bragging and doing all this stuff, and now you find out that you've lost 33,000 jobs. Here's the thing about the jobs report. It always seems to be good news, at least for the last several years. Joe Biden is president. They gained 16 million jobs in 4 years. Donald Trump takes over, and now we hear not only stagnating, but losing 33,000 jobs. I mean, it's almost like you never hear that happening. I mean, the only time I've ever heard that happening was, oh, I know, Donald Trump's first term, because in his 4 years, he lost 2.5 million fucking jobs. So this is right in line with the way Donald Trump does business. Now, he can try to deny it, but the facts are the facts, and people will keep throwing this around. This is where Donald Trump starts to lose it. You're a chicken. You're losing jobs. The economy sucks. You fucked up the bombing. You've got Signalgate. He's at a mode where he's got to protect everything, and it's becoming hard for him to juggle. When he was being interviewed, you want to talk about cognizant ability. With the Alligator Alcatraz thing, he's being interviewed. The reporter very specifically asked him, now, when people are in this prison or this concentration camp, whatever you want to call it, how long will they be here? Are we talking days? Are we talking weeks? Are we talking years? Well, how long will they be in there? And at first it was as if he didn't hear him. And they repeated, how long will they be in these prison camps? You know what Donald Trump's answer was? So this was his answer. He says, well, I've been in Florida a long time. I'll always live in Florida. I love Florida. It's a great place, and I'm not leaving Florida. Motherfucker didn't even know what they were asking. He thought in a meeting, in a press conference with regards to Alligator Alcatraz, that they were just making small talk, wondering what Donald Trump's going to do with his life. That's how far gone he is.
Yeah, he's completely gone. I mean, he was talking, we talked I think the last time I was on the podcast too about how he made the comment about the Declaration of Independence and the Civil War. You
Yeah,
know, he doesn't know shit from shit at this point. I mean, he didn't know a lot to begin with because he was at about a fourth or a fifth grade level at best. Um, and now I think he's down to about a first or second grade level at best. He's not all there answering questions that weren't actually the ones that were asked. He heard part of it, I'm sure, and tried to piece it together as best he could because he didn't want to appear stupid by, you know, not understanding the question. But then
right.
he gives an answer that makes no dang sense. And he doesn't realize how dumb it makes him look. And he's going to continue to get worse and worse until the Republicans are going to be left with no choice but to say, yeah, okay, it's time, coach. We got to pull the plug. We got to switch to the backup QB.
Well, the thing about it is Donald Trump is nothing but a pawn for these people. He can't come up with strategies or legislation or anything like that. I'm convinced he doesn't even know what's in the bill because he's told these people just recently. He said, "You know what? I'm going to tell you three things you got to avoid if you ever want to get reelected. Don't cut Medicaid, don't cut Medicare, and don't cut Social Security." Doesn't he know that that's what's in the bill? And why are these people who
Yeah.
are bowing to Donald Trump doing the exact opposite of what Donald Trump wants, or at least says he wants? It's there's a lot of miscommunication there, and maybe Donald Trump's just trying to maintain some reasonable deniability when they fucking ultimately do it. Well, I told them not to, but they did it anyways. I have a feeling he says, "Do it anyways." I'm going to act like I didn't want to do it, and then he can get some reasonable deniability.
Well, but the problem with that is then ultimately what he doesn't realize is it's going to land on his desk for his signature.
Yeah.
And if he signs and says, "Well, I didn't know the cuts were in there," motherfucker, didn't you read it before you signed it? What the fuck's
Yeah.
going on? You bitch about Joe Biden not knowing what he was signing, but he doesn't think that way. He doesn't think about any of that. He just is doing whatever he can in the minute to make things look good. And he probably doesn't know what's entirely in this bill. He was talking about how they were going to do no tax on Social Security, which they couldn't put in the bill because of the Byrd rule for reconciliation. That would have to be passed against the filibuster. They couldn't do it, but he thinks it's in there. He
Yeah.
doesn't have a clue, and he can't be bothered to read all 950 pages or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think we were talking about it earlier. I don't think it really matters to him what's in it. All he's really in it for is the win. He wants to say he won something, but he keeps thinking he wins and he keeps losing. And that's got to get frustrating to him and cause him a little paranoia that somehow people are trying to gaslight him around him because he couldn't be wrong. He couldn't be making stupid moves. Somebody else made the mistake. And then, that's how he does it. Well, no matter what happens here, he's going to blame it on somebody else. He's going to fire some people. I don't think he realizes that when people are truly suffering, people are dying, people are losing health care, they're going to blame him because the Democrats have been pretty good at messaging what's going on and what will happen. And when it does happen, I still think there's some Republicans that don't think it'll happen. They think the Democrats are just bullshitting. And I kind of like that because then they're going to get blindsided. And the only thing better than Trump-fuck suffering is when they get blindsided and then they suffer. I'm not compassionate for these people at all, but it's going to be a big mess. And the members of Congress who are standing by Donald Trump, all of them will be the scapegoats for Donald Trump. I can't believe they don't realize that, but that's what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, he's going to scapegoat the hell out of them. He's going to blame them all. well, they didn't tell me what was really in that bill, or they didn't this, they didn't that. Um, Republican voters are going to get blindsided, like we talked about earlier. A lot of them don't even realize that they're actually getting affected by the cuts. Um, because they don't know that they're on Medicaid in some
Yeah.
cases. And when they get blindsided, it's all about what they believe is, oh, they're only going after people who should never have been on the system in the first place. They have believed this messaging from the Republicans for so long that they are convinced that anybody can just walk in, say, I want to be on Medicaid, and the government just goes, yeah, okay, and hands it to them, sight unseen. And these could be people who are on the system themselves, who have had to fill out all the proper documentation, know about the review process, and they still believe that some people just get on there with for nothing and way easier. I don't understand how they have gotten themselves so convinced of things that just aren't happening, but they do it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And when this bill is done, oh, I was going to mention this too. I read this story. Mike Johnson's the Speaker of the House. He's trying to get this bill passed. The interesting thing, Mike Johnson and the rest of Congress got a note from every healthcare system in New Orleans or in Louisiana, every healthcare system. And they said, if you pass this bill, it's going to be historically devastating to the health industry in Louisiana. So that goes to the Congress and goes to Mike Johnson, the guy who's pushing to get this bill passed. How do you justify that when your own people, your own constituents, your own healthcare systems in your state say, if you do this, you're going to kill us? And Mike Johnson can still stand there and try to do it. I'm going to tell you this, Mike Johnson is either, if he doesn't get this passed, he may be gone. If he does get this passed, he may be kicked out of office by the electorate because they will feel it quick and they're going to want to have a pound of flesh. And the only person they can get it out of is Mike Johnson.
Yeah, and I think Mike Johnson, if he doesn't get it passed, like you said, he might be gone as speaker. I know they upped the threshold from one vote to like, I think it's 7, it might be 15 votes to oust him as speaker, but it's still not a very high threshold. And like you said, if he doesn't get it, or if he does get it passed, his voters are going to put him out. So either way, he could be out of a job sooner rather than later. Um, but I think if he ends up getting kicked out of the speakership, I think he might go the way of Kevin McCarthy, and he may not make it through the end of the term. He may,
That
if he
could
gets
be,
kicked out of the speakership, he may resign.
knowing that he probably wouldn't get reelected after something like that. Um,
Yeah,
so he's going to be in trouble either way. Uh, if it doesn't pass, Donald Trump is going to push him out because he's going to blame somebody. If it does pass, he won't get reelected. I'm guaranteed. And that should be a very big red flag to Republicans if that happens. If the Speaker of the House doesn't get elected in his home state after passing a bullshit bill, a lot of them will be nervous. If they're up for reelection in 2026, a lot of them are going to experience some severe pain. The thing is no matter what happens, if the bill passes, a lot of innocent people will suffer. Um, if the bill doesn't pass, a lot of criminally inclined politicians are going to suffer. So the Republicans don't really have a good way out. Either way they go, they're kind of fucked. And you have to wonder if they realize that and they're just willing to risk it all because they think they can bullshit or gaslight their way out of it. That's the only thing I can think is possible, that they think they can do this damage and they can spin the narrative so they still look good. And this is too serious. This is too severe. I don't think spinning it is going to work.
yeah, I think that might be part of what they're trying to do is to gaslight the American people into, oh, it's not nearly as bad. I did read that some of the steepest cuts and things they don't want to have start to take effect till 2028. They pushed them back. Well, why would they do that? Why would they put the cuts out, and not start it for 26 or 27? Because they know if the cuts happen starting, say, in January or in October or whatever, people are going to be feeling it going into the election. If they start it in fiscal year 28, that's the October of 27. They're hoping maybe they can get through the midterms. And I don't know if they're hoping they can get a stronger majority, that they can work with Democrats and pass something around Trump's veto, or if they're hoping Democrats take back control and can pass something around a veto. I don't know. But I think they're kicking out some of it, trying to delay the pain so it doesn't fuck them in the midterms, because they know it's going to be bad.
Yeah. I want to go off topic here a little bit. I want to go back to the deportations and all this shit because there's just a news report that came in from U.S. News, and it's the absolute thing that I think Donald Trump and the Republicans worried about by bringing back Kilmar Abrega Garcia. They fought very hard not to bring him back, but the pressure got too much, and then they found a way to bring him back, even though they said it was impossible. They still did it. But this is in the U.S. News right now. Kilmar Abrega Garcia says he was beaten and subjected to psychological torture in the El Salvador jail. He said he suffered severe beatings, severe sleep deprivation, and psychological torture in the notorious El Salvador prison. The Trump administration had deported him in March, according to the court documents filed Wednesday. Now, of course, Donald Trump will say, well, that was El Salvador. That's up to them. No, motherfucker, you sent that guy to that fate. And that isn't what America does. We don't torture people. We don't do those things, especially when the guy hasn't really been convicted of anything or even got any due process. This is what they were afraid of, that he would come back and talk. That had to be one of the reasons why they didn't want to bring him back. Now he's talking. That's going to blow some shit apart. And again, you got to look at the international law of this, because they took him to a different country, tortured him physically and mentally. It's fucking appalling. And this stuff has to be continued to pushed out in the narrative, in the media, so people understand just how cruel the Republican Party is.
Yeah, they did not want this guy talking. They did not want him to come back, talk about how bad the conditions were, what he actually experienced. They were hoping once he was there, he was going to stay gone. And then public pressure and the courts got to him and said, hey, you got to bring him back. They ultimately did. And now that he's talking, they're shitting their pants, going, oh, fuck, what do we do now? What do we do now? They don't know how to spin it. I guarantee you they don't know how to spin this, how to make it sound good, other than, well, he was a gang member. He was a gang member when they can't even prove that. Their only evidence that he was a gang member isn't even real evidence. It's, well, these symbols mean these letters on his tattoos on his knuckles. And Donald Trump even believed that the explanation of those symbols were the real tattoos.
What people have to understand, when they showed that picture, when they showed the picture of his fist and it said MS-16 on it, people think that MS-16 was what was tattooed on his knuckles, and that wasn't the case. That's something they put on the picture, hopefully to clarify what they think the other tattoos meant. And he had other tattoos on his hand, and one started with an M and one started with an I, and so forth. And it was really a reach to do it. But Donald Trump, when he saw that, he thought that meant the guy had MS-16 tattooed on it. He argued with the reporter, no, that's real. This isn't Photoshop. Anybody who looked at it knew what they were doing here. They were trying to say this means M and this means I. And it wasn't a tattoo, but Donald Trump just could not tell. He's either just stupid or just completely being misinformed, so these evil fucks around him can get him to do stupid shit.
Well, he's either that dumb, misinformed, or his brain is just that far gone and detached from reality that he doesn't know which end is up anymore. It wasn't even like good Photoshop. It wasn't, it was clear what they were trying to do in that photo. It wasn't even like they tried to make it look like they were tattoos or anything else. It was clearly just text put on the picture. Donald Trump couldn't look at that picture and go, "Oh, that's what that is." I don't know what to say to that other than he must be that far gone.
Yeah.
And then he's the one making all of our decisions about everything. This is the guy we're trusting with tariffs and whether or not to bomb foreign countries. Jesus Christ. His own party's got to wake up and do something here.
Here's something that's interesting about this budget bill, whether it passes, if it passes. The GOP budget bill would make ICE the largest federal law enforcement agency in the history of the nation. The budget bill just passed by the Senate provides more than 170 billion in new funding for immigration and enforcement and detention. 170 million, making it the largest federal law enforcement agency in the history of this nation. Well, it comes at a very opportune time because they're out of fucking money. So they need this thing to pass so they can fund ICE. But this is what they want to do. If you're if you're somebody who maybe voted for Donald Trump and is against deportations and seeing the egregious shit he's doing, understand he wants to make it worse. He wants to make it more serious. The people I feel sorry for, if they get kind of money, that kind of money, then a bunch of Gravy SEALs and Meal Team 6 guys that have been doing moonlighting with ICE are probably going to be out of a job because they can hire real people.
Yeah. And while they want to make it the most paid agency or most funded agency, remember, both Barack Obama and Joe Biden have deported more people than Donald Trump has so far at a fraction of the cost. And they did it all while using, due process and the proper legal channels and all of that.
Yeah, it's funny with this bill thing going on. People have kind of looked away from the deportation thing, and the bill thing is horrible. It's the worst bill in the history of this country. That goes without saying. But the humanitarian crimes that are being committed by the United States of America and its government are just mind blowing. How that could happen in this country. I mean, it's real easy to say, oh, they deported this guy, they grabbed these kids, and they did that. But when you start seeing the videos of little kids crying because their mom's getting taken away, or little kids being handcuffed and taken away themselves, or little kids with cancer taken away and no longer can get treatments, I mean, Jesus Christ, this this isn't this isn't Germany in the 30s, but it's fucking headed that way, no question.
Well, I read an article earlier today. Apparently, at an immigration hearing, there was a mom and her, I believe it was 6-year-old boy, something like that, young boy. And the supposed ICE agent that showed up, again, at the immigration hearing where she was trying to do things the legal way, shows up gun drawn, and apparently the kid peed his pants. He was so terrified of the guy standing there pointing a gun at him, and apparently it took them hours to get the kid clean clothes.
Wow. You know, that's what I've said to somebody else. I said, look, maybe you vote for Donald Trump. Maybe you need a job and you're on ICE. Um, Maybe you even believe in Donald Trump's deportation. But when you're sitting there hauling innocent people, old ladies, old men, children, and you sit and watch these people crying and screaming when they've done nothing wrong, how does that not get to you? What kind of sick motherfucker are you that you can watch this and say, well, it's just my job? It's just amazing to me that there are human beings that can do that. But clearly, there's plenty of them.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, you know, when the dust settles and this administration is gone and all of this comes to light, because some of these things, the statute of limitations will not be up when it happens. The I was just doing my job will not be a valid defense, and they're going to have to answer for what they do. It may be 2, 3, 4 years down the road for some of these people, but they're going to have to answer for it. And I don't know how they can.
Yeah, and I don't know if they understand this. I mean, these guys aren't smart enough to know what Donald Trump is doing is bad. So they may be not even understanding how they can be held liable for the things they do. And I think, maybe some of them think, well, even if I get in trouble, Donald Trump will save me. That's what I'm saying. When Donald Trump leaves, it's not like he's going to have 6 months to get ready and pardon all his friends and stuff like that. He's going to fucking keel over. He's going to be run out the door by his own party. Something's going to happen. And he isn't going to be in a position to sit and think about anything but saving his own ass. So if these people are hoping against hope, I'll commit these crimes, but Donald Trump will save me. I'm sorry. I just don't think that's going to happen this time.
Yeah, I don't think so either. If it was anybody else we were talking about, I have never really thought about it like this when it came to any other president, including Joe Biden, who I was worried about his age when he got elected
Yeah.
and everything else. I would say at this point, I would put the over under on whether or not Donald Trump makes it to the end of his term to January 20th, 2029, less than 10%.
Yeah. I'm just looking at something. TJ just sent me something, and it's something from Aaron Parnas about maybe Donald Trump is finally finding out what's actually in the bill. I mean, how long does it take for a fucking media reporter sit down and say, Don, they're cutting Medicaid. It's right here on the bill and such and such. If his own people won't do it for him, why wouldn't a reporter? I mean, because he says he doesn't want to cut Medicaid, Medicare, or Social Security. He doesn't want to do those things, but it's in the bill. Why doesn't a reporter just hold up the bill and say, right here, sir, fucking Medicaid is getting cut? And it sounds like maybe somebody's doing that. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what's going on with that. But um, again, Donald Trump only cares about the win. He doesn't care about the ramifications of what's going on. And that's why he was able to ignore COVID. He thought, well, it's not going to affect me, so I'm
Yeah.
fine. And it's the same with this bill. TJ sent me a note here on Wednesday night. He says, I think this is going to die in the House. It may die temporarily, but they're going to keep pounding on this thing for as long as it takes. Donald Trump will be angry that he doesn't make his deadline, presumably, or does make the deadline. Who the fuck knows? But once this bill situation is done, a lot of hell is going to break loose because that's the one big win they wanted. They have nothing else, and they're going to have to pay for their crimes. People are going to be upset. We talked about it before, how when we talked about Will and his prediction of people going to the streets with torches and pickaxes and stuff like that. Um, this is one of those things that could create that problem. I got to tell you, if I'm passing the bill and I'm on July 2nd when we're recording this, don't do it before July 4th because you got the No Kings protests going out there, and you might have 10, 12 million, 15 million people out there that now will be pissed on top of it. Not a good move. I would delay that thing for a while.
Yeah, you're probably right. Problem is, for them, when's going to be good to pass it? Because it sounds like they're trying to keep these No Kings protests going monthly almost uh,
Yeah.
all the way through. But you touched on why didn't a reporter ever say to Donnie, well, here's what's in the bill. Here's where they're cutting all this funding. One, Donald Trump won't read shit. Doesn't matter if you point it out to him. Doesn't matter if you hand him the specific page with it highlighted. He won't read the 3 lines of whatever you're showing him. He doesn't have the focus. He doesn't have the attention span. And I don't think he's got the reading comprehension skills to do it. But beyond that, all of the reporters that would have done that, every time they ask him a tough question, they get their press passes revoked. They get their credentials pulled. They can't get anywhere close enough to him to ask him. So these other reporters, hoping to even at least maybe catch him fucking up and saying something that he shouldn't, like talking about Israel and Iran, saying, well, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. The reporter's hoping to catch something like that on a hot mic. They're going to lob him softballs just so they can stay close enough. Nobody is going to be able to ask him those tough questions because he doesn't want them around.
Yeah. Well, you talked about Iran and Israel, and supposedly we're in the middle of a ceasefire. I don't think that thing's done. I think it's going to flare up again. Donald Trump is going to get pissed, but it won't matter because whatever's going on in the Middle East between Iran and Israel or any of the fighting in the Middle East, that's way bigger than Donald Trump. He only has so much control. Iran, for whatever reason, isn't really afraid of Donald Trump. And Israel knows they've got a choke chain on them too. So these two people aren't going to take any orders from Donald Trump. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, they're not. They're not afraid. It's much different than it was even under his first term. He's gotten much weaker. His political capital is spent. He appears weaker in all forms whenever he's talking about stuff. His incompetence is showing on a daily basis. They're not hiding it as well, in part because they don't have good people around that he can lean on. He's got to do more of it himself, which means he looks dumber on a daily basis. You're probably right. It is going to flare back up at some point. And of course, he's going to fume and he's going to huff and he's going to puff. But what's he ultimately going to do? He wants the Nobel Peace Prize, so he can't really commit to troops and doing much in the way of bombing to get the Peace Prize. All he can do is the same thing he's been doing with the Israel-Hamas war and the Ukraine-Russia war. Well, I'm telling you guys to back off. I'm doing it. We need to come to the negotiating table. All right, I got a deal. You guys just got to sign this. It's good for both sides, and they're just going to blow him off.
You know, we're getting toward the end here, and I wanted to bring this up because this is imminent. Um, Donald Trump put tariffs on. Economy went to shit. The stock market went to shit. So we put a 90-day pause on everything, and everything settled down. The stock market went back up and all that stuff. So that's good. But here's the problem. That 90-day deadline is up in 4 days, July 9th. It's up in 4 days. Now he told us he would do 90 deals in 90 days. Just the other day he said he cut a deal with Vietnam. Oh, great. You cut a deal with Vietnam, and now I'm hearing it's not really a deal and it's not a good deal anyway. It's kind of like the UK and Canada. He claims he has a deal, but he doesn't have a deal. What he doesn't understand is trade deals take a long time to fucking put together. And there's no way he could do that many deals, let alone one deal in 90 days. So we're coming up to July 9th when he said the pause would be over. What happens then? Does he extend the pause like TikTok, or what the fuck does he do?
I think he goes back to the well. I think he tries the tariffs again. And I think he tries to put them back on. And then when the economy dips again, he'll back them right back off. He'll chicken out like he's been known to do. But he needs to appear to be the tough guy. So he's going to say, well, see, I told you I'd put them right back on, because he's got nothing else. He's got no new ideas. He's got nobody around him feeding him new ideas because he doesn't want to hear new ideas. So there's no place for him to go. And these other countries aren't bowing to his demands. So he's got to do something, which it means he goes right back to the tariffs. And he's going to fuck the economy yet again.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, that's all he can really do. If he folds on it, then they're going to start calling him taco again. I mean, if he says, well, I'll give you another 90 days, it's looking really good, they're going to call him a chicken. If he puts the tariffs back on, then the stock market will crash and everything will go to shit. Um, I, I don't know what he's going to do with that. And this is part and parcel to what Donald Trump does. He always paints himself into a corner, and he always fucks himself up. And then he flails, blames somebody else, and then changes the attention. I mean, that's what we're doing here. We got deportations and humanitarian crimes going on. And then we talk about a bill that's going to be devastating to a lot of this country. And so we get focused on that. And then on July 9th, the tariffs end. Now we're going to be focused on that. It's hard for people to stay focused on one important situation. We've got three situations at least that are devastating to this country if they go the wrong way. It's almost too much for the average Joe to comprehend because it's just too much shit. Um, People aren't even thinking about the tariffs now, even though the tariffs are still having an impact. You know, I'm paying 30 cents more for gas than I was before Donald Trump was in office. I don't care what anybody says. Groceries are higher, GDP is higher, jobs reports, they're going down, not up. Um, Everything is falling apart. And he's beyond the point where he can blame Joe Biden for it anymore. He's been in office too long. He'll
Yeah,
try.
he's going to look. Oh, he's going to try. He's going to look for a scapegoat. Problem is, like you said, we got way too much juggling going on right now. People aren't able to grasp all of the danger, and unfortunately, we have to bounce between story to story, just trying to keep it in the air, so people are aware of what's all going on. Now, as far as these tariffs, I think he puts them back on, fucks everything up again, takes them back off, chickens out. But damage has already been done by him fucking the economy. Like you said, he can't blame Joe Biden anymore. He'll try, but we're past the point where it's Biden's economy. We're past the point where he can really blame the Democrats. Oh, he's going to say, well, they didn't let me pass my big, beautiful bill. So
You
it's the
have the
Democrats'
majority.
fault. But it's the Democrats' fault. They didn't pass the big, beautiful bill. It's the court's fault for blocking my executive orders because they didn't let me do everything I wanted to do. Therefore, that's why things suck. Like he's not going to take any personal accountability until he's forced to by his own party. And even then, I don't think you will never see him stand before a camera and say, I screwed up. It's never going to happen.
Before we go, I wanted to ask you about that Supreme Court decision where they're limiting universal injunctions. A lot of people were freaking out about this. Donald Trump will do this with the 14th Amendment. Donald Trump will do that. For me, honestly, it doesn't give him a free rein. It doesn't really have to do with the 14th Amendment. I mean, it could have some impact. I wasn't as worked up about that Supreme Court decision because, as much as it might help Donald Trump now, the Democrats could have used that when they were in power, and they'll be able to use that when they're in power again. I mean, we talked about the somebody I was talking to. We're talking to the mifepristone thing. They got a universal injunction because they took it to some fucking clown judge in Amarillo, Texas. Now, had they not been able to do that, it would have been a much different scenario. I'm not as worked up about that Supreme Court decision as a lot of people are, and I think the media just want to throw some fear in people's faces.
Well, the way I understand this decision is what they're saying is not that you can't do injunctions. What they're trying to prevent, and I think the Supreme Court got it wrong, but what they said is now a single person in one lawsuit cannot get a temporary restraining order affecting the entire country. So now what these people are doing is saying, okay, well, then instead of filing singular lawsuits because, Joe Smith has got this violation going on because of Donald Trump's executive order, and he may be hurt by that order. Now they're filing class action lawsuits on behalf of everybody who may be affected. And now suddenly you got a workaround against the nationwide injunction because it's a nationwide class action. It's different and it makes more oops, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. Now, ultimately, I think Congress is going to have to act down the road back when Democrats are in control again. And they're going to have to pass a law or something allowing judges to do nationwide injunctions like they used to.
Right.
But uh, Republicans love the nationwide injunction. Like you said, they go to that one judge in Amarillo, Texas, when they want something, and then when to get their way, but then when it works against them, they scream foul and you're cheating, and they want to change the rules. So I think ultimately this is not also going to be settled by the Supreme Court yet. I think there'll be another case in the future, probably something similar where they go to that judge in Texas trying to get a nationwide injunction, and he'll probably do it despite this Supreme Court decision, and they'll try to get the Supreme Court to overrule their decision in this case. And that case had nothing to do with birthright citizenship on its merits by itself. They were only ruling on the ability of the courts to do the injunctions. That was it. So it makes it more difficult, and we'll have to see when they finally rule on the birthright citizenship issue, probably next term or maybe even later.
As we're winding this down, I want to bring this back up. TJ was sending me some information. He wanted me to listen to this Aaron Parnas thing, and obviously I can't. I'm kind of fucking working. But what he was saying was kind of intriguing. I said, please spell out what you're saying. And this is what he sent me. He said, supposedly, some of the moderate Republicans went to the White House to talk to Trump about his bill and the cuts to Medicaid because they're concerned that if it passes, they'll lose their elections. Oh, you think? Trump said, you'll be fine as long as it doesn't touch Medicare or Medicaid. They said then to the president, it does touch Medicaid. It's $1 trillion, and he didn't know about it. That's what we were talking about before. He doesn't know what's in this fucking thing. And then TJ surmises that this bill will be killed by the House now. Trump's handlers hid this information from him, and now he knows about it. Well, that could be if Donald Trump seriously doesn't want Medicare or Medicaid to be cut, and his handlers lied to him and tried to sneak it by him, and he finds it out. There's a couple of things he could do. Get very pissed off for being embarrassed and go after his own people, or say, well, whatever, I don't care, just pass it anyway. But it's interesting that what we were talking about apparently is true. He doesn't know what's in the bill. He keeps saying, don't cut Medicaid, and we know Medicaid is being touched. And that was always my question. Why are the Republicans doing it if Donald Trump specifically said, don't do it? They're playing him. They know he's too stupid to know. They want to do it, so they're playing him. Question is, does Donald Trump realize that and then get pissed off? That's going to be intriguing. And since this is airing on the 5th, we may already know the answer to this. Either it does get killed in the House, because I don't see Donald Trump trying to kill it, because it's not about the bill for him. It's about the win. He wants the win. He wants his deadline. He wants it on July 4th so he can be the big hero. It's a matter of, now that he knows what it has and they lied to him, what does he do about it? And that's the hard question.
Yeah, who knows? It's anybody's guess. I mean, TJ's probably right. It'll probably die in the House now. It was already potentially going to die because it only passed the House the first time by one vote, and they want to make more cuts and changes and things. There was one representative who wanted to take it back to the bill they passed back in May, and if that passed or whatever, it'd go back to the Senate where the parliamentarian would dice it up yet again. So who knows? But I think if Donald Trump really feels that he got embarrassed by this thing, he may kill it. And he may, if it comes to his desk with the Medicaid cuts on it and he's aware that the media is talking about how bad these cuts are, it wouldn't surprise me if he tries to veto it as some way to get a win. As, see, I'm standing with the American people, not realizing yet again that it makes him look just as inept as and weak and stupid. But he reacts to things. He doesn't think them through because he can't. He doesn't have that level of brain function.
And that's the question, because he's so stupid. Does he see it? Well, it does cut Medicaid, but I got to get this win. I got to do it on July 4th so I can be the big hero. Or does he have enough self-awareness where he goes, like you said, if I shut this down, I could be a hero. If I shut this down and say, see, I stood up for Medicaid, I would be the hero. Now, if you give me those two options with Donald Trump, I'm saying he picks the first one because he doesn't have enough self awareness to know what could be beneficial to him. And if he does it, then he has to say he was wrong, which he can't do.
Well, he doesn't necessarily, if he kills it, he doesn't necessarily have to say he was wrong. He can say, I told them not to cut Medicare and Medicaid and stuff. They did it anyway, so I had to kill it. It's all on Congress. He's got a scapegoat. And he could still make himself look to be the hero. I think it's about 60-40. 60% that if it passes with Medicaid cuts in, he signs it to get the win by July 4th, and 40% of the chance that he would veto it to try to look like a hero for saving Medicaid.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be interesting because this will air on Saturday. We're recording it on Wednesday. I'll add some more stuff as things go on too. But I think you're giving him too much credit. I, th- I mean, if it were me, that's what I would do. That's what you would do. But Donald Trump is a different cat, man. He doesn't do what makes sense. He doesn't do the right thing ever. He always does the wrong thing. So I don't know if I would count on him using common sense and logic and taking advantage of a situation. I mean, he's constantly implicating himself and stuff. I don't know. I would hope that he would do that and then we could just let this go. But then Donald Trump won't have his big win. Like he had a loser with his parade. It's all about perception with Donald Trump. So he wants that perception that he's a hero and that he's doing great things. He needs a win somehow because he's doing nothing but losing. I don't know. But by the time people hear this, we may know the answer to that. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. If it plays out at all, my guess would, if they can't get this thing passed right away, they'll take it into July 4th. And then what are they off? 2 weeks? And they'll do
Something
it when
like
they
that.
come back. That's more than
Well, they're off
likely
for
what
like
they do.
well, they're off for like 2 weeks, back for 2 or 3, and then they're gone for most of August into early September. And
Right.
then they would have to get it done in the last 3 weeks of September because we need funding after September 30th. But they also got to get something done to raise the debt limit because we're up against that too.
Yeah, that's September, right?
I'm not sure because I know they've been
I th-
doing things to kind of bypass it here and there. I'm not sure when that ultimately runs out.
I thought the continuing resolution sent it to September, which was ridiculous because it was about 6 months. But I think they did that knowing that they would have a problem with that and coming up with this budget bill. Um, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Mike Johnson has just got to be shitting his pants, and his son and he on that little porn app have to be going crazy. Dad, stop looking at that shit. I know you're nervous, but fuck.
Yeah, the whole
What?
thing is ridiculous. And we might know by the time this airs, but whichever way Donald Trump goes, the only reason I'm giving him 60% that he passes it regardless is I think part of him though he still knows that now that he's been told the Medicaid cuts are in there, if he says that's the one thing they can't do in order to get reelected or whatever, he's aware of how bad that makes him look,
Yeah.
and that's I don't know. We'll have to see how he handles it, but he's
Well,
damned if he does, damned if he doesn't in this point.
yeah, he is. And that's a great position to put him in. And let's be honest, if they don't cut Medicaid, they don't have a bill. We're
Yeah.
talking about a trillion out of Medicaid. If they don't have cut Medicaid, they got nothing. And they're not going to be able to pass it because it won't do them any good. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. And for the people listening, I want to apologize that we're doing this so far in advance that we're maybe a little behind the times with what's going on by the time you heard it. but I knew that Eric would have a lot of other information that would be valuable and interesting to listen to. So I said, fuck it. And since I'm going to be on the road in a car driving to Georgia, I don't know where I'll be. I don't know what I'll be doing. I don't know where I'll be staying. I told my wife if we get someplace in the middle of nowhere in fucking red country, we may need to just find an old refrigerator box and huddle in there for a night before we get back on the road again. And just, and put some Trump signs on the side of it so they leave us the fuck alone. But anyway, Eric, I want to thank you for coming on. Kind of short notice, but I appreciate it. At least we've got something out there for the folks to listen to. We don't leave them hanging. I don't know. It's like the Republicans passing the bill or the damage that could do. I don't know what would happen if there was a day when people go, "Oh, listen to Rational Boomer podcast," and there's none there. I don't want to know what the fallout from the would be, so I want to make sure we're covered.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to be on the show. Hopefully we have some answers by the time this does air. It's kind of weird speculating that far out, but
It is.
it's
That's why
Donald
we do
Trump.
it every night.
It's Donald Trump. The one guarantee is he's going to fuck up no matter what he does.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just fun kind of predicting what the fuck up is actually going to be. Hope you have a safe trip driving. I know you got a long drive ahead of you.
Yeah, fuck. I don't want to do this. I don't like long road trips. I just don't like their long road trips. My wife loves long road trips. I'm hoping we take this road trip and it's maybe not as easy as she expects. We get it out of her system and we never do it again. I'm just hoping.
Yeah, I understand that. And I kind of know what you're thinking about. You don't really have an entire plan. I've looked at some long road trips before trying to plan it out every step of the way, and trying to plan it out gets tough because you're like, well, what if I want to do this? Or what if I get sidetracked? Or, you know, it's hard to have that full itinerary and make it work the exact way you want. And then you're booked into having to find a hotel, get to a hotel in a specific city. Too much stress, too much work.
It's a lot of work. And I just imagine myself in the car and driving down the road, down the highway, traveling through, I don't know, Hannibal, Missouri, which is no doubt red as fuck. I can't stop the car to do a TikTok, but some big news has come out. So here we are traveling down the freeway. I got the camera or the phone in front of me trying to do a TikTok while my wife is driving. It's going to be a fucking mess, but we'll get it done somehow.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing what you do from the road. And hopefully it ends up being a good trip for you.
Well, and one of the things Cindy wanted to do is go through, well, we're going to go through Tennessee anyway, Nashville, or maybe go further east by Gatlinburg and stuff. And she says, we can go through northern Mississippi and northern Alabama. I go, no, we're not going there. I don't want look, if there's one time I don't want to be recognized is when I'm fucking Alabama, for fuck's sake. I'm not going to get through there. And they're going to get you to, no, let's avoid that shit if we can.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure there are some great people in Alabama and Mississippi.
Oh, I know there is, yeah.
Stuff. But unfortunately, they've let the Trumplefucks win for far too long. You got to play it safe.
You got to play it safe. Well, Eric, thank you very much. For those of you listening, thank you for taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow, God willing.